Let's reconstruct the logical scheme for an argument given by WickedSupreme claiming Hasan Piker is a capitalist. In this way, we can more easily recognize if we agree with the argument or if it has some flaws. To proceed, we will need a preliminary definition of a capitalist, as given in the Marxist tradition. Capitalists are business owners who organize the process of production and own the means of production. They exploit their employees by extracting their surplus labor at a cost inferior to the value of the goods they produce. Now that we have our definitions in order, we are ready to go.
Some background. I'm not a leftist. I'm not purely testing Hasan. I don't even think what Hasan's doing is necessarily bad or immoral by my principles. But I do think it is an example of him not living up to his own principles. I think there is like a hypocrisy argument there. And the example I would use of him practicing capitalism, where he could be practicing something more in line with his own principles, is the way that he runs his YouTube. His YouTube is a thing with which he does not personally interact or provide any labor other than the raw material that he already produces through Twitch. And as far as I'm aware, he has an editor that basically, manages the entire YouTube. And then Hasan collects all the money that the YouTube makes and then pays his editor on a contract basis. Mm-hmm. So him contracting labor out to, he is creating a job by paying somebody to edit content and upload to YouTube. Even if he's drawing the profits, he's creating a job. And if he's paying somebody well for it, that's great, but it's not necessarily him practicing socialism where he otherwise could. And it is him operating as a capitalist. If it's the case that the YouTube, if he himself does not have the time nor the inclination to edit his own clips and put them up on YouTube, and the only method by which having a YouTube could generate money was through somebody else's labor, then this is an example of him practicing capitalism because he's extracting the excess value of that person's labor through the form of profit, even if it's the case that he is providing some of the raw material.
If one is wondering how Hasan could change the form of his working relationship with his editor, WickedSupreme also provides an example.
He makes a ton of money. He makes millions a year. I would estimate at this point between 2.5 and maybe 10 million a year, depending on which sponsorship deals he takes up and merch and stuff. And the YouTube might make $500,000 to $1 million a year, as far as we know. If you're making that much money, and you've got a staff that's as small as one other person, then and you have no costs. Okay, the cost on the YouTube is just whatever he pays his staff. That's overhead in the form of labor. And on Twitch, his overhead is literally just his internet bill or something. Then this is like an ideal business to start making attempts to set up socialism, right? One thing I would want to do in his position, if I were him and I wanted to, show like a good faith, effort to the world of this is what socialism could look like, I'd set up an LLC or something like that. And then I would set up a trust where there's some and basically I would put every member of the every single one of my employees on a board of director, and have us all be sort of like horizontal in terms of authority over that LLC. And I would put all things that we could consider to be owners or the means of production, and any claim to its ownership through a trust. So like a password on the YouTube server, a stream key or something like that. And, basically have all the money come through that trust and then have the board of electors vote on how that money gets distributed.
The argument criticizes Hasan, but maybe it's better seen as a broader critique of socialism. It's a double bind. Intuitively to some, it may seem unreasonable that his editor, the worker, would get a stake in the ownership of a YouTube channel. But then isn't that what socialism would imply in this case? Overall, the argument seems quite robust.
Profits are surplus labor value extracted from the workers. That's just it. Simple as. Simple as.
Maybe there is some wiggle room to disagree with some premise. If you think that's the case, please make your points in the comment section. I find this case interesting because as a utilitarian, I realize that I often behave less than optimally with respect to my own ideals, that are very hard to embody completely. But it also seems like there must be a threshold after which it's okay to criticize someone for not living up to their principles. Say I tattooed the little cucumbers on people I kidnapped and held in a basement to make them suffer, while at the same time advocating for maximizing the happiness of everyone. Then some criticism would hardly seem unwarranted. There may be a threshold on the hypocrisy spectrum after which it's a positive to give constructive feedback.